What if I told you there's a strategy so compelling, so mentally impactful, that no contact seems tame? Because no contact still allows for anticipation, it still has you passively waiting, speculating if they'll return. But this strategy ensures they regret their departure, not because you vanished, but because you evolved into someone so formidable, so unattainable, that they're forced to reevaluate everything. This isn't about manipulation, nor is it about obsessively checking your phone. It's about taking command, about reaching such a level of self-mastery that, by the time they understand their loss, you're past caring. This is the account of someone devastated by heartbreak, just like you. Someone who believed no contact was sufficient until discovering something significantly more potent. By the conclusion of this presentation, you'll possess a technique so potent, they won't just long for you, they'll rue ever letting you go. So if you're prepared to end the suffering and begin succeeding, hit that like button, subscribe, activate notifications, and comment below. I dictate my future. Now let's get started. Number 1, the downfall. A person crushed by affection. The downfall. A person crushed by affection. They were completely unprepared. One moment, their partner was their entire universe. The late-night conversations, the private jokes, the profound discussions that fostered the belief they shared something genuine, something unbreakable. Then abruptly, they were gone. No extensive justification, no apology, just a detached farewell that felt like a stab. They stood frozen, rereading the final message, as if scrutinizing it might somehow clarify everything. But it didn't. It never does. The ensuing days were agonizing. Every area felt empty. Every song triggered recollections. The bed seemed too vast, their device too silent. They could still hear their laughter, still envision the way they used to gaze upon them as if they were the only one. But now they looked at them like a stranger, or worse, as if they were invisible. That was the most painful aspect. How effortlessly they moved forward, how rapidly they erased them, as if they were merely a temporary phase, a name to be forgotten. Yet they couldn't reciprocate. Their thoughts became a battleground torn between anger and sorrow, between wanting to despise them and desiring their return. They replayed every instance, every exchange, seeking the error, the moment of failure. Had they been too accommodating, too affectionate, or not enough? They tormented themselves with unanswerable questions, losing rest over a past they were powerless to alter. That's when the counsel began. Initiate no contact, they advised. Vanish, make them miss you. Thus they complied. They erased their number, ceased monitoring their social media, and compelled themselves to resist reaching out whenever their fingers hovered over the keyboard, yearning to send a message. They restrained themselves, affirming that they were demonstrating fortitude, that this was the means to make them realize what they had forfeited. But internally, they remained a prisoner, because even though they weren't communicating with them, they were still preoccupied with them daily. They checked their device, anticipating a message that never arrived. They scrolled through old images, pondering if they had ever genuinely cared. They reassured themselves they were advancing, but realistically, they were simply waiting for their return, waiting for them to realize their error. But that day never materialized. That's when it dawned on them that no contact was inadequate. It was a temporary solution, not a permanent fix, because as long as their contentment hinged on their return, as long as they needed their endorsement to feel complete, they remained vulnerable. Vulnerability is never alluring. They didn't respect them when they were devastated, and they certainly wouldn't respect them for passively hoping for a reconciliation. They were engaged in a losing endeavor. That's when the transformation occurred. Just like this presentation, subscribe and comment below. I control my emotions. Number 2, the reality of no contact, its limitations. The reality of no contact, its limitations. No contact is the advice universally given, the default method when you've been abandoned, ignored, or replaced. Simply disregard them, they suggest. They'll return when they realize what they forfeited. Initially, it seems like the ideal strategy, a silent conflict, a test of perseverance. You sever ties, you disappear, and you wait. You envision the day they regret it, The instant they check their device, notice your absence, and immediately panic. You convince yourself they'll begin questioning you, missing you, scrutinizing your online activity, that they'll experience the loss as intensely as you do. However, here's the harsh reality. Frequently, they don't, or at least not as you anticipate. No contact can be effective, but only if you genuinely progress. The problem is that most don't. They employ no contact as a strategy, not as a transformation. They aren't actually mending. They're merely waiting for that text, that call, that moment when they ultimately realize. But waiting remains a sign of weakness, because as long as you're anticipating their return, they retain control. Women can sense this. They can perceive when a person is merely feigning strength, when they're only embodying the role of someone who has moved on, rather than genuinely doing so. They discern when a person is still emotionally connected to them, even in silence. That's why no contact in itself frequently fails, because if they detect that you're still observing, still waiting, still hoping, they know they still wield power over you. What ensues? They don't miss you. They simply advance for real. Perhaps they check in after a few weeks, solely to ascertain if you're still present, solely to experience that minor surge of validation. When they observe that you are, that you still respond, that you still care, they retreat once more, feeling even more assured in their choice. You were merely a game they had already won. That's when most crumble. They receive that minimal attention, that fleeting dopamine rush, and they mistake it for a second opportunity. They presume this is it. They're coming back. In their excitement, they commit the critical error. They reveal their intentions. They respond too rapidly. They engage too eagerly. They expose that they were never truly detached. At that moment, they realize they were justified in leaving. Thus, what's the answer? If no contact isn't sufficient, what is? The answer is evolving into someone they can never reconnect with, not merely through silence, not merely through waiting, but through absolute, unwavering indifference. The truth is, they'll only sense the loss when they see that you're no longer affected, not pretending, not faking, but genuinely gone. When they reach out, because eventually they will, you won't even be concerned. Just like this presentation, subscribe and comment below. I need no one. I choose myself. Number 3, the strength of indifference surpassing no contact. The strength of indifference surpassing no contact. Initially, they assumed no contact was the solution, that if they remained silent long enough, they'd begin to miss them, that they'd reach out when they understood what they had lost. However, as time passed, they arrived at a harsh realization. No contact was insufficient, because internally, they were still waiting, still hoping, still permitting them to occupy their thoughts. As long as they still cared, they remained vulnerable. That's when they resolved to cease waiting, cease hoping, and cease pretending. It was time for something more potent than no contact, something they wouldn't anticipate: indifference. Not merely ignoring them, but completely eliminating them from the equation. They were no longer of consequence. Their thoughts, their sentiments, their regrets were irrelevant. They didn't simply sever communication, they erased them from their world. No monitoring their social media, no wondering who they were with, no keeping the option open in case they chose to return. The truth is, silence is an absence of communication. Indifference is strength. Silence still possesses an emotional charge. It still signifies you care. However, indifference is what induces panic. That's what compels them to question everything. When someone who once adored you now perceives you as just another individual, someone they could pass on the street without a second thought, that's when they experience the true weight of loss. That's precisely what transpired. Initially, they didn't notice. They presumed they were simply engaged in the same game as every other person, waiting, suffering in silence, hoping they'd come back. Then something shifted. Their absence wasn't merely temporary, it was real. Their energy was different. They weren't just avoiding them, they had outgrown them. That's when the shift occurred. One day they scrutinized their online presence, anticipating seeing the same person they had abandoned. Instead, they beheld someone unrecognizable, They weren't sulking, they weren't posting mournful quotations or playing games to solicit their attention. They were living, thriving, unbothered. They appeared improved, more self-assured, more robust. Worst of all, they were no longer a component of their narrative. That's when the remorse began to surface. Why aren't they devastated? Why aren't they attempting to win me back? Did I make a mistake? Suddenly, they were no longer certain because if someone can progress without hesitation, if they can completely detach, it compels people to question their own self-worth. They had presumed they would always be present, that they could return whenever they desired. Now they were unsure. That's the secret. Indifference is more potent than silence. It's more potent than absence. Because individuals don't yearn for what they can disregard. They yearn for what they can't control. When you attain this degree of detachment, you don't need to block. You don't need to declare your departure. You simply become someone they can never reconnect with. Just like this presentation, subscribe and comment below. I am untouchable. Number 4, the murky facet of allure, the reason they invariably return. The murky facet of allure, the reason they invariably return. They believed they had triumphed when they departed. They presumed they'd crumble, that they'd be consumed by remorse, that they'd remain waiting for the day they became bored and chose to revisit the past. It's what the majority do. They beg, they plead, they endeavor to demonstrate their value as if affection is something that can be negotiated. But they did something dissimilar. They vanished, not just from their existence, but also from their thoughts. Initially, they didn't notice. They were too preoccupied with reveling in their newfound independence, pursuing new experiences, possibly even entertaining other prospects. In their mind, they were still there, subtly suffering in the background. However, as time elapsed, something began to feel amiss. Where were they? Why weren't they monitoring their stories? Why weren't they waiting like everyone else? That's when the unease surfaced. See, human nature is predictable. Individuals don't value what they possess. They value what they fear permanently losing. When they perceived that they weren't merely ignoring them, they had progressed entirely. It triggered something ingrained within them. Doubt, uncertainty, curiosity. The same person who once revered them, who would have done anything for them, had now transformed into an enigma. And nothing is more alluring than a person who is unattainable. This is the murky facet of allure, the painful, brutal truth regarding human psychology. Individuals are drawn to what they can't manage. They desire what is scarce. The instant you remove yourself, genuinely remove yourself from their world, you generate a void that they can't overlook. That's why they invariably return, not because they miss you, not because they suddenly recognize your worth, but because they resent the notion that you no longer require them. Thus, the dynamic shifts. They begin scrutinizing their online presence more regularly, seeking indications that they still care. Perhaps they initiate a minor test, such as liking an old photograph, sending a "hope you're doing well" message, or even attempting to behave as if nothing transpired. It's not a sincere effort to rekindle things. It's a maneuver to test their power. They want to ascertain if they still affect them. If they react, they succeed. If they ignore them, they spiral. This is where the majority fail. They mistake their inquisitiveness for genuine remorse. They presume, this is it. They're realizing what they've forfeited. The instant they express interest again, the instant they react, they forfeit that apprehension of loss and depart once more. The cycle recurs, but not this person, not this time, because they understand now. They are the prize. They don't need to demonstrate their value. They embody it. When they ultimately reach out, anticipating discovering the same person they had left behind, they encounter someone dissimilar, someone colder, someone who perceives them not as their future, but as a lesson from their past. That's when the remorse overwhelms them, not because they lost them, but because they are no longer of concern. Just like this presentation, subscribe and comment below. I am the prize. Number 5, the Stoic metamorphosis, transforming discomfort into potency. The Stoic metamorphosis, transforming discomfort into potency. The old version would have pursued, They would have seized any crumb of attention as a sign of hope. They would have overanalyzed their every action, every message, every subtle interaction, desperately trying to decipher whether they still cared. That person no longer exists, because this time they're not merely progressing, they're transforming. Not to win them back, not to impress them, but for themselves. Discomfort is potent. For the majority, it becomes a prison, a cycle of remorse, self-doubt, and endless suffering. For the select few, the ones who comprehend the strength of Stoicism, discomfort transforms into something else. Fuel, a weapon, a stimulus for rebirth. The contrast between the vulnerable and the potent is straightforward. The vulnerable permit discomfort to define them. The potent utilize it to evolve. That's precisely what they did. Instead of evading the discomfort, they embraced it. They sat with it. They permitted it to sharpen them. Every instance of heartbreak became a lesson. Every ounce of suffering became motivation. They ceased wasting time dwelling on the past and began directing their energy into one endeavor, becoming unbreakable. They commenced with their mind. Emotional regulation became their foundation. They studied Stoicism, training themselves to manage their emotions. Where before they were reactive, now they were calm, unshaken, untouchable. Next came their physical form. A resilient mind must be matched by a resilient body. They channeled all the energy they formerly wasted on heartbreak into self-discipline. The gymnasium became their arena. Every repetition, every set, every drop of perspiration was a silent vow to themselves. I will never be vulnerable again. Their physique changed, their posture changed, the manner in which they entered a room changed, and individuals took notice. The most significant transformation was internal. They no longer required validation, they no longer required attention, and because they required nothing, they attracted everything. The same individuals who once disregarded them were now drawn to them. The same person who believed they could replace them now observed from afar, wondering what they had forfeited. This is the essence of genuine power, not seeking vengeance, not pursuing validation, but becoming so undeniably valuable that the past becomes irrelevant. They didn't merely progress, they leveled up so far beyond their grasp that they became a mere footnote in their adventure. Ultimately, the ultimate victory isn't causing them to rue losing you. It's becoming someone they could never possess again. Just like this presentation, subscribe and comment below. Discomfort makes me stronger. Number 6, the silent domination, winning without words. The silent domination, winning without words. The old him would have felt the need to prove something, to show her and the world that he was doing better without her. He would have posted cryptic quotes, flaunted his progress, and hoped she'd see it. But the man he has become, he doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. His success speaks for itself. This is the art of silent domination, letting your actions, your achievements, and your unwavering self-assuredness communicate what words never could. He understood that true power isn't about external validation, it's about internal conviction. He stopped seeking her attention, not because he was playing a game, but because he genuinely didn't need it. He was too busy building an empire within himself to care about who was watching. He focused on his purpose, his passions, and his growth. He surrounded himself with people who uplifted him, challenged him, and inspired him to become the best version of himself. He invested in his future, knowing that his value would only increase with time. And as he ascended, she watched. She saw the transformation, the quiet confidence, the undeniable success. She saw a man who was no longer defined by her absence, but empowered by his own presence. She realized that she had underestimated him, that she had mistaken his kindness for weakness, and that she had made the biggest mistake of her life. But by then it was too late. He was no longer the man she had left behind. He was someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who knew his worth and wouldn't settle for anything less. When she eventually reached out, hoping for a second chance, she was met with a polite but firm indifference. He didn't need to explain himself. He didn't need to justify his choices. He simply acknowledged her presence and moved on, leaving her to grapple with the reality of what she had lost. This is the ultimate victory, not just moving on, but becoming someone they can never have again, someone who transcends their reach and leaves them with nothing but regret. It's about recognizing your own inherent value, embracing your potential, and silently dominating your own life, regardless of who is watching. Just like this video, subscribe and comment below. I am my own masterpiece. Number 7, the unburdened soul, freedom from external validation. The unburdened soul, freedom from external validation. He realized something profound. His worth wasn't determined by anyone else's opinion of him. It wasn't etched in old photos, past conversations, or fleeting moments of validation. His value stemmed from his internal compass, his unwavering commitment to growth, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing he was becoming the best version of himself. This was true liberation. He stopped filtering his actions, thoughts, and aspirations through the lens of external approval. He no longer tailored his life to impress, provoke, or manipulate. He simply existed, authentically and unapologetically, driven by his own passions and values. This newfound freedom was intoxicating. He pursued his goals with relentless focus, not to prove anyone wrong, but because his ambitions fueled him. He surrounded himself with individuals who mirrored his energy, who celebrated his successes without envy, and supported his ambitions without judgment. He discovered that true connection blossomed from authenticity, not from contrived displays of worthiness. He attracted people who appreciated him for who he was, not for who he pretended to be. And as he shed the weight of external expectations, he became lighter, more resilient, and more magnetic. He radiated an aura of self-assuredness that drew people to him, not because he sought their attention, but because his genuine presence was captivating. This is the paradox of true power. When you stop trying to impress others, you effortlessly attract the right people into your life. When you release the need for validation, you unlock your full potential and become an unstoppable force. Just like this video, subscribe and comment below. I am enough. Number 8, the alchemy of loneliness, transforming isolation into strength. The alchemy of loneliness, transforming isolation into strength. He once feared solitude, viewing it as a reflection of his inadequacy, a testament to his perceived lack of worth. He craved companionship, not for genuine connection, but to fill the void within himself, to silence the nagging voice that whispered of his incompleteness. But through the crucible of heartbreak, he discovered the transformative power of solitude. He learned to embrace his own company, to find solace in his own thoughts, and to cultivate a deep sense of self-reliance. He realized that true strength wasn't found in external validation, but in the ability to navigate the world alone, without the crutch of constant companionship. He used his time in solitude to delve into his inner landscape, to confront his fears, and to heal his wounds. He practiced mindfulness, learning to observe his thoughts and emotions without judgment, allowing them to flow through him like passing clouds. He meditated, quieting the chaos within and finding a deep sense of inner peace. He discovered that solitude wasn't a punishment, but a gift, an opportunity for self-discovery, and a catalyst for growth. He transformed his isolation into a sanctuary, a space where he could nurture his soul, cultivate his passions, and emerge stronger, wiser, and more self-assured. This is the alchemy of loneliness. When you embrace solitude, you transform your isolation into strength, your vulnerability into resilience, and your fear into freedom. Just like this video, subscribe and comment below. I am complete on my own. Number 9, the art of detachment, surrendering the need for control. The art of detachment, surrendering the need for control. He clung to the illusion of control, believing that he could orchestrate his life, manipulate outcomes, and bend reality to his will. He obsessed over details, micromanaged relationships, and fretted over uncertainties, desperately trying to maintain a sense of order in a chaotic world. But through the harsh lessons of heartbreak, he learned the futility of control. He realized that life was inherently unpredictable, that people were free to make their own choices, and that clinging to rigid expectations only led to disappointment and suffering. He began to practice the art of detachment, surrendering his need to control outcomes and embracing the uncertainty of life with open arms. He released his grip on the past, forgave those who had wronged him, and focused on creating a brighter future. He stopped trying to force relationships, allowing them to unfold organically, without pressure or expectation. He learned to accept people for who they were, flaws and all, without trying to change them. He discovered that true peace came from letting go, from trusting the flow of life, and from surrendering to the unknown. He embraced the present moment, savoring the simple joys of life without dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. This is the essence of detachment. When you surrender the need for control, you unlock a sense of freedom, peace, and acceptance that transcends the limitations of the ego. Just like this video, subscribe and comment below. I trust the process. Number 10, the Phoenix Rising, rebirth from the ashes of heartbreak. The Phoenix Rising, rebirth from the ashes of heartbreak. He emerged from the depths of heartbreak, not as the same man who had fallen, but as a stronger, wiser, and more resilient version of himself. Like the mythical phoenix, he had risen from the ashes of his past, reborn with renewed purpose and unwavering determination. He carried the scars of his experiences, not as symbols of weakness, but as badges of honor, reminders of the battles he had fought and the lessons he had learned. He embraced his vulnerabilities, knowing that they were the source of his strength, his empathy, and his compassion. He channeled his pain into creativity, transforming his suffering into art, his heartbreak into poetry, and his experiences into wisdom. He used his story to inspire others, to offer hope to those who were struggling, and to remind them that they were not alone. He became a beacon of light, radiating positivity, self-assurance, and unwavering self-belief. He attracted abundance into his life, not because he sought it, but because he embodied the qualities of success. He understood that heartbreak wasn't an end, but a beginning, an opportunity for transformation, and a catalyst for growth. He embraced the journey of self-discovery, knowing that the best was yet to come. This is the ultimate triumph. When you rise from the ashes of heartbreak, you become a phoenix, a symbol of resilience, hope, and the unwavering power of the human spirit. Just like this video, subscribe and comment below. I am reborn, and that, my friends, is the path to silent domination. It's not about manipulation or playing games. It's about mastering yourself, embracing your potential, and becoming the best version of yourself. It's about transforming your pain into power, your loneliness into strength, and your heartbreak into a catalyst for rebirth. Remember, you are the prize. You are enough. You are capable of achieving anything you set your mind to. So go out there, conquer your fears, embrace your challenges, and create the life you deserve. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future content. And don't forget to comment below and share your thoughts, experiences, and insights. Until next time, stay strong, stay focused, and never give up on yourself.